G'day. This video takes a look at the northern section of Mt Margaret Track, which runs between Burgoyne Track East and the Tamboritha Road and is located almost due east of Licola. This section of the Mt Margaret Track starts at the Burgoyne Track East intersection. There's been a fair amount of track works following the fires in early 2025, and the track is in great condition. A lot of the vegetation along this section of the track has been smashed by previous fires, probably the 2019-2020 fires, or perhaps even earlier. Further north you can see the impacts of the 2025 fires, where the track was essentially used to stop the fire, so one side of the track is burned and the other side is not. This section of Mt Margaret Track is very similar to the southern section we profiled in another video. It's got lots of fairly steep gradients, but the track conditions overall are really good. It's almost what you'd call a four-wheel drive touring track, and like the southern section of the track, the panoramic views are fairly awesome as you drive along. There's been quite a bit of work along the track recently. I'm not quite sure what they're up to, but I assume that they're essentially creating a fire break. There's been a huge amount of vegetation clearance. There's the intersection with Chromite Mine Track. That will be profiled in another video. The track passes by two mountains, Mt Ronald and Mt Margaret. The track itself skirts around the edges of both those mountains, but you're pretty close to the summits. You could actually stop and walk up to the summits if you really wanted to. Here we are, almost at the Mt Ronald summit. Really interesting track to drive along. Takes you through some interesting vegetation and up and down through some gullies. Here we are climbing up onto Mt Margaret, so the summit's just a little bit of a walk up the hill. There has been some extensive vegetation clearance along the track. At times it feels like you're driving through a park. There are some decent track gradients as you get towards the northern section of the track. You can see there we're up around 22 degrees. That's quite steep at the top of that climb. There's no real obstacles along this track to note, other than the steep track gradients in a few places. Here's a little lookout that we came across on the track. I reckon that's B1 track you can see in the distance. And from here the track essentially descends down to Tamboritha Road. There's a stack of half decent track gradients as you descend down towards the Tamboritha Road, which is located along the Wellington River. Here's one of the final descents. It's really steep. And here we are at Tamboritha Road. Hope you enjoyed the video. It takes about 1 3/4 to 2 hours to complete Mt Margaret Track, the northern section. I would regard the track as a medium four-wheel drive track, mainly due to the steep track gradients.